to the curve, where ideas take flight, blending tech and
All right,
teaching.
this episode of the Learning Curve. I'm talking to Holly Curry, and we're talking about virtual learning. And it was such a fun conversation to have, where we just got to explore what she does, because she does all of our virtual learning on at Region 7. But then really to think philosophically about what virtual learning is, and kind of how to think about that and what the future of learning might look like. And so we'll talk a little bit about real practical reality of that the world we live in, but we're going to dream a little bit and just think, what could school look like? And so hopefully you'll join us in that what if, and just kind of imagine things. We realize that we live in the world, and that some of our dreams aren't going to come true, but at the same time, just getting to think and dream and say, oh, this would be so cool if, I think is a fun exercise. And so I hope that you join us in the what if, and just imagining what virtual learning could look like. Welcome to this edition of The Learning Curve. My name is Carl Moen, Digital Learning Specialist here at Region 7, and I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time because I get to interview Holly Curry, and Holly does one of my favorite things in the entire world. She is in charge of all of the online courses and virtual classes here at Region 7. Holly, tell us a little bit about what you do, introduce yourself, and just kind of dive into what you get to do here at the Service Center.
So I like that you put it that way, because that's what I say every time somebody asks me what I do. Like, there's no have to go to work. I get to create and manage all of our online courses. So everything from compliance courses to how to teach math better, science safety, you name it, we have a course over it. So if you've ever looked at our calendar, you'll see like a huge list. Those are the things that I've either created for someone or helped someone create. So let's say Carl wants to create a course about AI or whatever he wants to create a course about. He could send me his presentation in a Google Doc or slides or PowerPoint, whatever he wants to do. And I'll take that information, package it up, make it make sense, make it flow, add some interactive pieces, add some discussions if needed, add a quiz at the end. And what I really love about it, as far as that goes, they're all short courses. So if you're like me, you've got like a minute of attention span going there. But they're all short courses, and so they you're automatically awarded credit within our system. So we've really worked hard over the last 2 or 3 years to get a good bank of in-demand courses or on-demand courses, so that teachers, administrators can just go in there and get what they need. So that's one of the main things that I do. I love being creative and helping with that kind of thing, just because it's my jam, if you will. And so the teachers, and so our specialists, they don't have to concern themselves with, well, how, people aren't coming to my workshops, what am I going to do? And we understand, and that's why we want to have such a big bank of courses, because as you know, subs aren't there. People are not going to have subs, and for whatever reason. And so we want to be able to make sure and meet the needs of our teachers and people by having the courses that we have.
Yeah. And I like that as you're talking right there, that what we're trying to create is a bank of places for you to go and do some learning, get some credit, get some PD, whenever you need it. And that's what's so great about it, is sometimes this is just in time training for whatever you need. And so we're trying to build a bank of these courses. And Holly, you and I have both done some distance learning in our graduate work, but you were a really early adopter to this. This has really become kind of a part of who you are, almost your DNA.
Yeah, it really is. So I got my first master's in curriculum and instruction back in, I think it was 2001. Yeah. So this was like, it was almost still dial-up. Yeah. Luckily we were living in an apartment in Savannah, Georgia at that time. And so we were able to get the, I think it was probably cable internet then. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to do that online. It was still traditional in a sense of courses, and you still had to talk to people, and there was still group work. So there were a lot of the issues, I shouldn't say issues, there were a lot of the things that we see in classrooms today, like one person doing all the group work and stuff like that. But gave me in Savannah, Georgia, the opportunity to understand and learn and work with people from all over the nation.
Yeah.
Because it became, it's not just about the learning, but it's about who you're learning with. And so
Mm.
you learn more about them as well. So
And I think that's really valuable. That's such a cool piece, such a cool part of that.
absolutely. And sometimes there's also universities, and now there are universities where it's meeting the needs of the adult learner, which is what we
Mhm.
really try to do with our online courses. And that's why I love them, that they're on demand and you can do what you want to do. And so I also got a master's at another university that is on demand, basically on demand, and you can move through it as quickly as you want to. And even with that, you can still learn so much. Now, there were no discussions and learning from other people and that kind of thing, but just interacting with the material, I learned so much doing that to be able to do initially to be able to do the things that I do now. So it was a training to be better at creating and managing online courses. So
Yeah.
instructional design.
Yeah, yeah. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, because that's becoming a real initiative for something that we're trying to do at the Service Center, and you spoke exactly to it. With the way the world is at the moment, and really coming out of COVID, and moving into where we are right now with the technological capabilities that exist. We still do in-person workshops, and we still like doing in-person workshops. However, we recognize that sometimes those can become a little difficult to manage, especially if you're running a classroom and you've got 100 kids, or however many kids you've got 20 kids in a self-contained classroom, whatever it is. It's hard to find subs. It's hard to take time, because if I take time away from my students, then that's time I don't really get back as hard as I can try to work to get that back. I don't really get that time back. And so it's something that we're trying to do as a service center, something that you're trying to do specifically, Holly, is really create a whole bank of courses. We talked about that a little bit, but we've got so many things, and our specialists have created courses or have created ideas, and you've kind of helped work through that to create the course. But a new service that we want to offer. Talk about that a little bit, because I'm really excited about this. I think this could be really, really cool for districts.
I'm super excited because this is just, again, what I absolutely love to do is create and meet the need of people. So to meet the needs of some of our districts, we know that they have maybe a handbook that they need to go over, and they just don't have time to sit down and say, okay, here, we need to go over this, and this in some of their PD. And so what we're offering now is that I will create the course for you. So same like we do here, and the information comes for our specialists. The district would send me whatever they want it to be over, kind of a time limit, what colors they like, what colors they don't like. Do they want it branded with their school district? Do they have a logo? All of those kind of things. And I would do the same that I do for our Region 7 specialists. I would create that course for them. Additionally, we would put it into our registration system and then manage and run it for them. So as far as the district goes, they hand it over to me. We talk back and forth, get it made and whatever, and then they're almost completely hands off.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I can get that done for them and help them to do the things that they need to do that are in person. Uh, I'm excited. I
Yeah,
can't wait. I'm ready for somebody to jump in and say, let's do
yeah,
this, because it just expands what I get to do, and expands the reach that I can do for our districts, and impact things for
yeah.
students, which is the most important thing for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the idea of on-demand courses where I can go as a teacher and find something, or as an administrator, I can say, hey, here's a course you need to go do. And I'm thinking of all of these things, some of these things that we did at the beginning of the year, which take time out of the day that can be used for planning, or can be
Mhm.
used for other necessary kinds of meetings.
Right.
And so this can kind of supplement what's already taking place.
Absolutely. But just to make it clear, because you said about all the beginning courses. Now, this is not the bloodborne
Right,
pathogens or any
right.
of those kind of things. We do have those, but that's a different service through the service center. This is just
Absolutely.
things that are specific to different districts.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we think about just the ideas of virtual learning and the technological capabilities that exist, um, uh, when we think about a shift from, and this is kind of entering the philosophical sort of realm when we're talking about learning, because we've been in a world that largely has focused its time around brick and mortar buildings, in person learning, and I can hear people saying right now, well, virtual learning doesn't work for high schools because of what we went through with COVID, and I understand, and I hear that and I get that, but I think that there's an opportunity because of the capability that exists now, largely because of things like the pandemic, largely because of things where we had to learn stuff, with talking to each other through computers. Everybody had to develop that skill, but largely because of things like that, we've seen virtual academies popping up around the state and even
Yeah.
really near us physically where we're located. And we know that this has become a demand and even an opportunity for students. Just if we're just going to project, I love virtual learning. I know you love virtual learning. So if we're going to project and just try to imagine what's learning look like in 20 years, 50 years, long after we're gone, what does learning look like? Let's just put on our philosophical, distance learning, virtual learning hats and just kind of think, what's school going to look like? Taking what we know right now and just sort of trying to project that.
So I would see the future of virtual learning being, a kid being able to do a lot like what I did with my master's, sitting down, going through, okay, I've got to get through chapter 1 of this class. And so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to create a video to show my teacher, and I'm going to send it back to my teacher. I can chat with my teacher if I need to for extra help, but for the most part, it's self-paced for some.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you need somebody to be not self-paced, or I need to have, okay, we're going to do this today, and then I'm going to talk to the teacher. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to talk to the teacher, so that it's more like a regular classroom. There can be that as well. So what would be really cool, and I just had this thought, would be, you've got a school, you've got an academy or whatever you want to call it, and they have like 3 different things. So they have a brick and mortar school. Fine. They have teachers that run the brick and mortar school. It's all the same because you have kids that need that face-to-face interaction. You have teachers and people that need that face-to-face interaction. Then you have kind of a middle of the road that's I can either go to school if I want to, kind of blend it if I'm close, or I can just work with my teacher, kind of like what we're doing, face-to-face, helping them out. What people might see as the COVID way that things were done, but done way better because we've learned so much. And then maybe a third pathway would be that self-paced, that kid that at 16 years old could be graduating if he or she is ready, simply because the monotony of everyday life is getting to them. Or even the third pathway, that could be the student that they have 5 siblings and they need to be home with those siblings because both of their parents have to work day and night, and there's just no way that anybody else can take care of it. But they're a responsible kid and they're going to take care of their business. But here's the problem that I have with any kind of online learning now. And it's not a problem, but it's just something that I told one of my kids recently. I said, if you didn't have ag and CTE classes that you really, really loved and sports that you enjoy doing, I would put you in an online academy because he can advance himself there. He can push and he can get college credit and he can have his associates by the time he graduates high school next year. Now, I'm not saying that that's bad for his school. It's just his personality. He does much better in that kind of thing. But that's taking away the CTE classes, which is honestly, he said, Mom, if it weren't for ag, I wouldn't want to go to school. Yeah. And so that's the things that he loves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, even with new things like esports, any way that we can get students and get them involved, because being involved is so important for social development and for that kind of dynamic. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you that that's it seems like that's what virtual academies can be missing sometimes, is
Mhm.
some level of that social interaction there. But I think that there's a way around that, and I think that we can
Mhm.
come up. And I love that how you laid out those three different ideas about kind of the approach to school.
Yeah. Well, but everybody has a different way that they can handle things.
Yeah,
You're going to do things in one way, and I like things better in another way. I mean,
yeah,
try to make me come to the office and see what happens. I'm kidding. I love coming to the office. I love talking with people. But I'm kind of like my son. I like to go, I like to get a little bit of social time, and then I like to get all my stuff done when I'm at home. And it's nothing against anybody. It's just how I learn and how I do things best. But if we could strike that balance between those three, that three part school,
hmm,
maybe we need to think about that. And then have those extracurriculars that if they
yeah,
want to still do them, extracurricular CTE or whatever, to just put it all together. That would be an awesome thing for my grandkids to be
mm,
able to have, in the
yeah,
future, in that 20 and 50 years
yeah,
from now. And I just hope that it does go that way. I project and say, oh, that would be awesome. And so I hope that we've learned, and I think we have. I
yeah,
think we as educators have learned what's good education online and what's not. And
yes.
and I hope that it's going to go that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think even things as simple as, and so just kind of bringing it back a little bit to
Uh-huh.
present day and reality and where we all exist right now, even simple things like Google Classroom, and Canvas and other learning management systems like that have prepared us for a more virtual learning environment. And there's hesitancy on that, and I completely understand that because we're stretching as educators, we're having to stretch ourselves to learn how to do this.
Mhm.
And I also get that, when we're talking about attendance requirements and how are we measuring those kinds of things,
Yeah.
and that those aren't bad. I mean, it's good for kids to go to school. Those are all good things. But how are we measuring those things? And we have to be a little bit, maybe a little more creative in our approach, and thoughtful in our approach to how we kind of work through some of that. And that's going to require us to to be flexible in how we're thinking
Mhm.
about schools. But I think that the important thing, and I think that we've sort of touched on this a little bit, but the important thing to note is that school isn't for you and me anymore. I
Absolutely.
mean, we're the ones who are the educators. We're the ones who are supposed to be the learning guides. School's not for us though. It's for our students. And
Yeah.
in the technologically advanced world in which we live now, how are we meeting their needs? And
Mhm.
even in my district. So I was in Kilgore for a long time. My
Mhm.
wife is still in Kilgore, and Kilgore has done a program called Gateway, and they're actually transitioning that program next year. And it's specifically designed for students who are non-traditional, and
Mhm.
whether they have to have a job, they have to work, or they've got to take care of family or work with that. And so the hours are a little bit different, and the way that they manage things is a little bit different. And that has been a real, I'll use the word blessing for some of these kids, because they've been able to advance their high school careers, and do them in non-traditional way. And I love the forethought that's gone into that. And other schools do something very, very similar. That's just my understanding, my experience.
Right, right.
Um, but to think about serving not just non-traditional students, because that's a group, but how can we serve the wider group of students who, like you were talking about with your son, who might really excel in online environments, but also need that social interaction and the development that comes along with those CTE and ag courses,
Yep.
certifications, and those kinds of things. I think that we're living in a world that can easily imagine a transition to something like that. And so I love the potential of where that could be going, and in public school space, because that's where we live, and that's how we're working. And so I think there's some real exciting things, and maybe we're just dreaming, but I think there's some really cool stuff, perhaps, that we can do with virtual learning.
Well, and we already have some schools in our region that are set up with CTE centers. Like I
Yes,
think it's Tyler that
Tyler
has
has
like a
one.
whole
Yeah.
like a whole campus.
Oh, it's
And
awesome
so
too.
I know I've driven by it. I've never been
Oh,
in,
it's
but
so cool.
yeah. So why couldn't that be,
Yeah.
utilized. I mean, that
Yeah.
would be a great idea. And where my son goes to school, he goes to dual credit courses
Hmm.
off-site.
Hmm.
And they do some woodworking and some CTE type courses with professionals, not with
Right.
teachers, but not people that intended to be a teacher, but with a construction guy,
Right.
that has been doing construction all his life. And so, it's there. It's just the matter of that flexibility and that
Yeah.
realizing that we can do something a little bit different. And that is hard. It's hard
And
to think that way.
some of it I think is a demand too.
Hmm.
With so many of our schools that are very rural schools,
Hmm.
it's the demand. Can we find enough students to actually make this a practical reality? And so that's I get that,
Yeah.
and that's the difficulty too of
Hmm.
of living where we live, where almost all
Right.
of our schools are very very rural. But just trying to imagine what could this look like?
Hmm.
And I know that we've actually wandered off of the topic, but of
Not really.
what you do, especially here at the service center. But as we're just kind of thinking, and virtual learning, of course, again, is one of those things that we're just really passionate about,
Hmm.
and just thinking
Absolutely.
about what it could be.
Yep. And could you imagine some, courses like that for teachers, teaching
Oh
them
yeah,
how to be a virtual teacher? That
yeah,
would be, that kind of, could be a need at some point. So that would be awesome as well.
yeah. And if you've been watching the podcast, if you go back a couple of months, we had an interview with one of my former professors, Dwayne Harapnik, who is in Vancouver.
Hmm.
And he's, I mean, when we did the interview, he's still in Vancouver. And so that was really cool. And then getting to do this interview with you, even Holly, we're not sitting in our office. We're not sitting at our
Hmm.
conference table. We're doing this in completely different locations. And so, but that's a skill set that has to be developed too, because
Absolutely.
you can't just you can't just turn on your camera or throw on your headset and automatically be an excellent virtual teacher. It takes some. We have to rethink kind of how we're envisioning this and how we're building the course. If I've got my scope and sequence and I'm just laying out my whole course for the year, I know what my lessons are going to be, and I know kind of how I'm going to conduct my class. Doing it online, I've got
It's
to
totally
think
different.
differently. Oh yeah, yeah, it's really different. And even building some of the courses that you've helped me build for the service center, I'm having to think differently. And my biggest thing, and this is I'm love working with Holly because she takes what I do and she makes it so much better. Because my biggest thing is I try to throw way too much stuff because I'm trying to imagine what's it going to look like to keep people busy for however long I've got to keep them busy. And Holly will say, "This is great, but I had to take out like 2/3 of the class, And so
Hey, we'll make it into a series.
there
That's
you
what we
go.
do.
Yeah,
Make it
yeah,
into a series. But, and that's the beauty of my job
yeah,
is I get to work with different people that have that mindset of, hey, we got to have all the things out there. But I try to keep them to 1 hour, like you said, but I'm never going to mess with their content. And that way it is truly their course. And that's what I've tried to stress to people and to the districts as well, as that as they hopefully sign up for the service. It's your course. It's not my course. I don't want my name anywhere in there. It's all about what you can do and what you can teach the teachers, because that's you're the specialist in that area. So it's just I never do it and I don't think you ever took it that way. I never do it out of malice.
oh no,
It,
not at all, not at all.
it's just, wow, there's so many
Yeah,
things. And if you're like me, which we've talked about this and you do this as well, oh, here, let's share this. Oh, look at this resource. We get so excited about being able to share. And so that's part of it as well. And so then that's when I make it into a series.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I love it, and I love what you do for the service center already, and
Mhm.
the way that you work with the different departments and our if you're a new teacher, if you're going through our impact
Oh, yeah.
program, Holly has had a hand in every single class that you have worked on.
Thank
And
you.
she has really done the majority of the work, I'll say, especially on the classes that I've turned in. She's done the majority of the work in crafting those things and building them and making them make sense, because this is her area of expertise, and so I know that the people that she's worked with in the impact program have just her to thank for the success of their program, because it's going so well. And so I
Yeah,
love that. I
we've got
love what you're
lots of
doing.
teachers, and I'm
Oh,
so excited. I
that's
love it.
tremendous. It's such a great program. So if you're thinking about becoming a teacher and you're in Region 7, come join us in Impact, because it's an excellent program. That's our little pitch for them real quick.
Yep.
I love the new service, and we sort of let the cat out of the bag on that one, because it hasn't. I mean, it'll be the beginning of May is when that'll actually be officially pitched and opened up. But Holly can help build your course if you're in a district and you're just looking for a way to perhaps get some on-demand kind of classes out to your teachers. I think that Holly, and she said handbook stuff, and that's great, but I mean, the sky is really the limit. Your imagination is the limit, and what that could look like for your district. And we already have somebody who can do it for you, so you don't have to come up
Yep.
with it. And then and I love the conversation just about virtual learning in the future and what that might could look like, because as educators, we need to stretch, we need to grow, we need to do what's
Right.
best for our students. We need to create an environment that is is cultivatable. I don't know if that's a word, for learning. We need to cultivate an environment for learning, whatever it might look like, because learning is the goal. Learning is what's important. So
Absolutely. 100%.
So, Holly, thanks so much for joining
Sure.
me today. And I want to give you the last word. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts? It doesn't have to be about virtual learning. It can be about whatever. Any sort of closing thoughts, and then we'll shut it down for the day. But thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I just hope that people will have the passion for learning that I do. And that's where I've gotten where I am today. So if you want to do something like this, or you want to do anything in your life or do something different, there's something there in the virtual space that can teach you how to do it. You know, there's YouTube University. So don't be afraid to go out there and do something different, to just learn and be a lifelong learner. And that's where I'm at. Is just I'm a lifelong learner, and that's what that's what's brought me to where I am now.
Absolutely. That's awesome. If you want to connect with us, please shoot us an email, and you can find Holly's email address right there. I'll post the link right there. And so you can reach out to her, especially if you want information about virtual coursework at Region 7, or just dreaming about what that might look like in your district. So thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time on The Learning Curve.
Welcome to the curve, where ideas take flight. Blending tech and teaching, sparking insight. From digital to